All right, welcome to class, everyone. Again, I apologize for the technical issues I've been having with the live class session, big blue button. I've talked to my tech, my IT guy several times. I can't seem to figure out what's wrong, if it's my computer or what. Rest assured, we will be meeting Tuesday, where we will be having our test review, as well as we'll be covering chapter 12 too. So it's important to know that the tests that we will be having, which will be taking up most of next week, it'll be a take-home test. We'll cover chapter 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so it's not comprehensive. It's just chapters 9 through 12. Chapter 8 you will not be tested on, and chapter 13 you will not either. So um, come to class ready to ask any questions you have about the test, how long it is, whatever questions you have, you will be welcome to ask them then. Okay. All right, great. We're talking today about parties and interest groups. Now we need to real quick set out the difference between a party and an interest group. So an interest group is when there is a group of you that have a very narrow focus on one issue that you really, really support or want to fund, and you want to try to push through Congress. You want to try to get legislation for. So let's say you're really into the Second Amendment and you want to have gun rights. Okay, so then an interest group that you could belong to is called the NRA, the National Rifle Association. Um, that's something you could belong to. Everybody who belongs to the NRA feels the same way. They feel very closely about that, right? Same with, like, let's say if you were pro-choice for abortion, you could join a pro-choice interest group where everybody in the same group is contributing money, is trying to apply pressure, is trying to do things like that to try to get people to pass legislation, to get laws passed that affect pro-choice. Okay, so that's just a very narrow focus, but everybody agrees very strongly. Now, parties are a broader group, right? Parties are where uh, you have lots of different views on lots of different things, and you might not agree with everyone in the party on every single thing like you do with the interest group, but it's a lot broader, right? Parties address almost every issue there is, right? So it's so broad that you can't expect to understand all of them. Okay, so. Um, Go ahead. We're going to go ahead and talk about parties today, interest groups. Those are some of the things that you'll be able to know after this chapter. This is just a really short segment that I want to get you the very broad information. I only have about 15 minutes on this recording, so this is very quick. I apologize. If you ever want more time talking to me about any issues, we can Zoom or anything like that. Okay. All right, so a political party is defined as a group of citizens that is united by an ideology and seeking control of government in order to promote their ideas and policies, right? So it's a group of citizens by certain ideologies. That means many, right? A big group. They provide support for democratic government by providing linkage, by overcoming the fragmentation that exists naturally in government, and to provide opposition to opposing party. All right, there's three components of parties in American government. We have party organization. That's the official structure. The party in government, that's the members of the party who have been elected to serve in the government. And then we have the party and the electorate. Those are the ordinary citizens. So if I were to say I'm a Democrat, that means, okay, so first party organization, that means that the official structure of the Democrat, right, the Democratic Party that is run by the DNC chair, and so that's the party organization, the party in government. So if I was to say I was a Democrat, that means I am a Democrat in office, right? I'm a Democrat senator or a Democratic congressperson. Then a party in the electorate, I'm a Democratic voter, right? I'm just an ordinary citizen, but I identify as a Democrat and I vote as a Democrat. That's what the party in the electorate means. All right, each party presents a coherent set of programs to voters, consistent with its own ideology and clearly different from those of other party members or party groups. Okay, so there has to be something that separates you, right? The two parties can't agree on everything. In fact, now they don't really agree on almost anything. So yeah, that's interesting. The history of the parties in America. You have party machines, party bosses. You don't need to know that too much. Okay, there are parties of stability eras, There's also where a party is in power. Um, right now, we are not in a stable era, right? We've had a Republican, then a Democrat, then a Republican, and there is a good chance that we'll have a Democrat again, or there's also a good chance we'll have a Republican. It's really close right now. So we're not in a party. We're not in a stable era. The realignment is a substantial and long-term shift in party allegiance. So in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan and the Republican Party kind of tied their party together with the religious groups, and they became what's called the religious right. They got put together, and that was a realignment, right? They really changed the way that religious people voted. The religious, and they did that primarily on abortion, primarily abortion. The parties today, um, there is a increased polarization. People view themselves as Democrats or Republicans, and they view the opposing party as idiots or jerks or morons, or they increasingly insult each other. They're very unkind, and that's mostly the older generations. Though the younger generations don't really tend to identify with parties as strongly. I know maybe some of you do, but for the most part, millennials and Gen Zs, Zoomers don't identify with parties quite as strongly as some of the older generations, as Gen X and Boomers and things like that, baby Boomers. Okay, Boomer. So candidates and party platforms are important. Uh, who are we going to vote for? Are we going to vote for creepy Joe Biden, or are we going to vote for Donald Trump, who insults everyone? Right? You don't have much of a choice, but you have to vote for someone. Is the ideology that's running around, right? You have to vote for one of the two. That's the way it works. All right, characteristics of the American party system: two parties. We have what's called a winner-take-all system. So the winner-take-all system is the idea that when someone wins, let's say I get 51% of the votes and Susan gets 49% of the votes, I end up representing 100% of the people of our district, right? It's not like Susan stays on and represents 49%. I represent everyone. So it's a winner take all system. And so it's kind of tough to have a third party in America when it is a winners take all. In Great Britain, where it's not a winners take all, where there's proportional representation, it's a lot easier to have a third, fourth, fifth, and sixth party, right? Um, so, like I said, most modern democracies have more than two parties. That's because of a single winner system. Um, so when it comes to money policies about money, the two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, are closer than they have ever been. They are very close to each other on the way that they look at things like that. However, when it comes to social or cultural issues like abortion, gun rights, things like that, they've become more polarized than they've ever been. They're far on the ends. They don't really agree with each other at all. They find a lot of room to disagree, in fact. Um, okay, let's get to factions now. Factions, according to James Madison, is a group of citizens united by some interest or passion that might be opposed to the common good. So these would come to be known as interest groups. And an interest group is defined as an organization of individuals who share a common political goal and are united for the purpose of influencing government decisions. Okay? So they all have that. So remember, party is a lot of different ideas, a lot of different goals. Special interest group is really strongly on one topic, really focus on that one topic. Representation is they pay what's called lobbyists. A lobbyist is an individual who's usually very educated, maybe a former government employee, maybe a former politician, lawyer, someone like that, who goes to Capitol Hill or goes to the Congress and tries to talk them into passing a bill that is favorable towards them. Really well-respected lobbyists are some of the most influential people in Washington, D.C. So lobbying is a very important job, and a lot of people make money doing it. So important to know that. Agenda building. So interest groups create an agenda. That means they work to get the issues they care about onto the agenda, and they make them a high priority, right? They raise awareness. They raise awareness. The provision of program alternatives. Interest groups can supply alternative suggestions for how they want to deal with some things. And program monitoring, it helps the government decide whether to continue or to change policy, right? So the government kind of takes their cues off of interest groups. So there's kind of they set the agenda by naming what's called a collective action problem. The difficulty to get people to work together is that the solution is costly and no one individual has an incentive to use resources to make it happen. So let's say Steve really likes playing the oboe in high school, but there's not a whole lot of good instruction for him. So he wants to donate a whole bunch of money to arts in public high schools. Well, Steve's dad is a coal miner and his mom's a stay-at-home mom, so they don't have a whole lot of money. So how are that one person going to affect bringing music and arts into the public high schools? They're not really going to. But if they join an interest group with thousands or tens of thousands of people just like them, that's the point at which they can actually start seeing a change, right? That's when we can start actually seeing some difference there. The collective good is a good or service that is, by its nature, cannot be denied to anyone who wants to consume it. The problem with that is that it's a free rider problem. So let's say, Steve and his mom and dad are collecting all this money for music in the high school. Well, let's say my son plays the oboe too. He actually does. He's a really good oboe player. He plays the oboe, and but I don't contribute. I don't join the special interest group. I don't do anything for it, but I still reap all the benefits had I joined, right? And so that's the free rider problem, is that everyone benefits from it, even though only some people foot the bill. So that's one of the reasons why it's hard to attract people, because it's like, well, why would I join and fight for the cause when I can just get all the benefits anyway, suckers? That way they can make it their selective incentives. Material benefits come in the form of tangible benefits, solidary benefits, related to the interaction and bonding among group members, and then expressive benefits are derived from the opportunity to express values and beliefs and to be committed to a greater cause. Okay. All right. There's two sorts of lobbying, the way that interest groups target these Congress people. They direct lobby and they indirect lobby. A direct lobby is when they send the lobbyists directly to them. They influence them. They buy them dinner. They show them reports. They talk to them. They schmooze them. Those are the sort that's direct. Now, indirect is when you will call people like constituents, voters in that congressperson's district, and encourage them to put pressure on the congressperson, right? That they are the one that are like, no, you need to vote this way, you need to vote this. So it's that is kind of an indirect way. That depends on what kind of representative you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a representative that prefers to listen to the people, well, indirect lobbying is the best way. If you're dealing with a congressperson who thinks that they know everything and that they're not going to listen to anyone anyway, direct lobbying is probably a better way to go than having constituents call. Okay, there's two forms of lobbying. There's grassroots lobbying. That's indirect lobbying of efforts that spring from widespread public concern. And that's just, it happens very naturally. AstroTurf lobbying is when lobbying is used to manipulate or create a public sentiment on an issue. So one of the issues of AstroTurf lobbying is that whenever there's a school shooting, gun companies tend to drum up in the public that liberals are going to take away your guns. And so people will buy tons of guns and they'll join the NRA and they'll fight. And that's one of the ways of AstroTurf lobbying. There's not really a major concern that anything is going to happen. Liberals are not even close to taking away your guns. Trust me on this one. But people fear that it's going to happen. And so that's where the AstroTurf lobbying comes in. Okay, that hits the end of our slideshow for today. One thing I do want to just leave you with is we will be having that test review this upcoming Tuesday. And when I give a review, I basically just answer any questions that you want. I can't go over every single question because there are so many questions that I pull all my questions from a database of about 500 questions. So I can't give you specific questions. However, I will open up past quizzes which have a lot of those same questions already on them that you can study on your own. I'll also have PowerPoints loaded up so you can look at PowerPoints. And so all of those things should be able to be addressed. But if you have any questions before that time, please email me. We can set up a Zoom meeting and we can chat then, okay? All right, thanks guys. Have a good one.